Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blog, where I shake my brain nipples every day to get some of that dirty YouTube money so I can afford to provide you folks hands-on, in-person technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is you want to do in Durham, North Carolina. We're having a class coming up on AI and web scraping in 2 days. That is completely and utterly full. Don't sign up for it, but it's coming up. We have another class coming up in about 2 weeks on using REST APIs to extend AI capabilities. We have more classes coming up every few weeks. If you're interested, take a look at silicondojo.com to see what our schedule is. Do remember, free to end user is not actually free. That's why I shake my brain nips every day. If you want to throw some money into the donor box link down below, that would be ever so lovely. And so with that, we get into the story for today. And I think this is kind of an interesting story because it is the question of how will the decoupling with China go between the United States and really the rest of the Western world. One of the things that I find fascinating in the business world is the fact that most business leaders really, in fact, are not revolutionaries. They are not rebels. They are not free thinkers. They are none of that horse crap, right? They're little damn lemmings that do whatever the hell all the other little damn lemmings are doing. And so that's one of the interesting things that you see. You know, I've talked about this with the COVID pandemic, where all of the big tech companies hired a metric crap ton of people, not because they needed them, but because every other tech company was hiring a metric crap ton of people. And then they started firing crap tons of people. Why? Because they didn't need them to begin with, and everybody else was firing them, right? We see this whole AI bandwagon, and now you'll notice for Silicon Dojo, right? We're focused on AI classes. Almost every single class we're doing has some component in artificial intelligence. And the thing is, so you might be saying, well, wait a minute, why are you teaching a technology that you disparage? And the reason is because the technology is fine. The technology is a fine stack. It's just not worth $1.4 trillion in CapEx expenses, right? But every company is going after AI because every other company is going after AI. And that was one of the big things with the offshoring of a lot of industrial capacity to China for a long time. Is what you saw in the United States is the companies of the era, basically they were outsourcing production to China many times, basically because everybody else was outsourcing production to China. I think it was an interesting thing. I forget which exact restaurant chain it was, but one of these restaurant chains basically followed wherever some other restaurant chain went. I forget, again, the specific numbers, but it was kind of interesting. It was like this whole idea of why Burger Kings keep showing up near where McDonald's are. And the idea is that McDonald's does a lot of research for where they're going to set up a new restaurant. So they look at demographics and all that kind of thing. And they really try to laser focus on where they're going to put their next restaurants to make sure there's profitability. And they have like Burger Kings, like Burger King or Wendy's or something like that. And they didn't want to spend the money on all that research and everything, but they knew how good the research for McDonald's was. And so basically, whenever they saw new McDonald's going up, they'll go, "Oh wow, that must be a great market." And they literally just put their little Burger King or whatever relatively close. That was one of the things that happened probably about 15, 20 years ago. It's kind of an interesting story. And I think that's one of the things. Like a lot of the offshoring into the Chinese market is basically a lot of the smart kids at the time are doing it. And so a lot of other companies were following along, not because they necessarily had a plan, not necessarily because they knew how this was going to make their company better, but well, if they're doing it, I guess we need, it's not even should. It's not could or should, it's we need to do it too. And so what's curious now is basically we're seeing the retraction, again, the decoupling of the United States from China. And so I did a story recently talking about General Motors. And so General Motors, not only for the specific components that they create, are they trying to decouple from China, but they're specifically going to their vendors and saying not only do they not want the parts that the vendors use coming from China, they don't even want the raw materials coming from China. Basically, they're trying to strip China out of their supply chain. And the curious thing here is basically that whole question of once one king lemming does something, How quickly will everybody else follow? And what will the ramifications of that be? And again, what's interesting here is the whole question of what will happen with China. Like, I'm going to say something, trigger warning to the Chinese people watching. I'm going to say something that I don't think you're going to be able to accept. But you know, China does propaganda too. China does jingoism too. Like, there's this weird thing, right? When I talk about the corrupt American political establishment, when I talk about all the problems that the United States have, I have so many people, especially Chinamen, clapping, yeah, US is fucked up. It's like, look, buggos. I generally don't shit on your country because, again, I'm not an American. And as far as I can tell, most of the problems that we have with China have basically been created by us. That doesn't mean y'all are perfect either. It doesn't mean everything's going along wonderfully over there. It's not like, wow, China is the system that we have to replicate. You'll notice that. If you actually fucking listen to any of my videos and listen to the context, my argument is that America needs to be funding more trade schools and America needs to be reindustrializing. I rarely fucking ever say we need to replicate that shit show over there. That's your shit show. You deal with it, right? I do think that's one of the weird things. You're like, oh, Eli's just a China shill. No, I've got my country to worry about. My country is what I'm concerned about. And one of the curious things is, so what we've heard so much so far, right, is China has already decoupled, right? China already sees America as an insignificant market. But think about this. If we're doing propaganda and they're doing propaganda, there does become an interesting question of, yeah, what happens if there is the sucking sound? What happens if the United States really, again, the industrial powers in the United States really start trying to close off from China? Is it the thing that China can shrug off quite the way that they claim to, right? You think about this like with Tesla. We're going to be talking about Tesla with Elon Musk. There was a point apparently where they were almost bankrupt. They're almost bankrupt. But he powered through and he came out being the techno king of the universe or whatever. And they made it through that period of time. And now they're a $1 trillion company. And that's one of the things to realize, right? As long as you don't go bankrupt, as long as you don't fail, you can fake all the way up until you don't fail. And hopefully things will swing back around. And it is an interesting question, like how well are things really going over there? But I think the curious thing now is with Tesla. So this is coming out with Tesla. So we have GM. So GM is trying to entirely pull its entire supply chain to be out of China. And Tesla, for American vehicles, seems to be trying to do the same thing. This will be interesting for Tesla too, because Tesla has a pretty big China presence. So basically, Tesla giving the middle finger to one of their bigger markets, that will be a curious consequence. But I don't know. We're going to see what's going to happen. Tesla is looking to phase out China-made parts at U.S. factories. So basically, Tesla is now on that lemming bandwagon of get the China crap out. Right? Tesla has reportedly swapped out several China-made components already, aiming to complete the transition within the next 2 years. Tesla has reportedly started directing its suppliers to eliminate China-made components from vehicles built in the United States. This would make Tesla's U.S.-produced vehicles even more American-made. As per the Wall Street Journal, the shift reportedly came amidst escalating tariff uncertainties between Washington and Beijing. Citing people reportedly familiar with the matter, the publication claimed that Tesla has already swapped out several China-made components, aiming to complete the transition within the next 2 years. The publication also claimed that Tesla has been reducing its reliance on China-based suppliers since the pandemic disrupted supply chains. The company has quietly increased North American sourcing over the past 2 years as tariff concerns have intensified. If accurate, Tesla would likely end up with the vehicles that are even more locally sourced than they are today. It would remain to be seen, however, if a change in the suppliers for its US-made vehicles would result in price adjustments for cars like the Model 3 and the Model Y. So basically, it's just a nice, sweet, short little story of Tesla is now trying to pull China out of their supply chain. And the bigger question here is what if more and more corporations actually start trying to do the same? That they feel that the best path forward is not to have China within the supply chain anymore. How swiftly can things pivot, right? When we look at China, right, coming into the WTO back in whatever, it was right around 2000, right? In 25 years, China has become an absolute juggernaut. But one of the things I've talked about, right, is I remember when Yahoo was Yahoo. I remember when when AOL was AOL and BlackBerry was BlackBerry, and all these big companies were the companies that could not be beat. I remember that too with Japan. If we look at society level things, when I was growing up, we were all told, all the Gen X generation was told, we needed to be more like those Japan man out there if we wanted to succeed and be successful in life. And then the 1990s happened. 1990s happened. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since the kids in the United States have been beat over the head with the Japan doing it better, right? It's interesting how these things come and these things go. And so one of the curious things is, again, with everything going on, the shifting dynamics of geopolitics, how quickly could trade routes and all that kind of stuff actually change out of China? Will it be in a year? Hell no. Will it be in 2 years? No. Will it be by the end of Trump administration? No. But if people start going down this route, there is the thing in 2030 or in 2035. Like, that's one of Trump's arguments. Like, I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I do not think it's the path we should be going down. But that's one of Trump's arguments, is like, this might be painful now, except for it's not. If it was going to be painful now, it would be painful now. But of course, it's better than ever now, because it's Trump, right? But the idea is you go through some pain now because of how things will be in 2035, right? Again, with how our systems work, 10 years, don't get me wrong, 10 years is a span of time where a lot of things can change shockingly significantly. 1 year, no. 1 month, fuck off. But 10 years, give you a decade, you can do a lot. And so it is kind of curious to think about like where this could be going over the next decade and what 2035 will look like. So what do you think about this? What do you think about Tesla trying to phase out China-made components? What do you think about this coming out after GM already told its vendors they want to phase out China-made components? What do you think about this on the whole global geopolitical stage with everything else going on? Do you in fact believe China is in as strong a position as they claim to be? Is it beyond the pale to think that maybe China does propaganda too? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a dumbass. Just don't be a real Lutnick and put a strong American comment down there in the comment section. Do you remember what I actually care about is Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com. Free to end user hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is you want to do. We're having a class coming up on AI and web scraping in a couple of days, completely full. Don't sign up for it. We have another class coming up on extending AI capabilities using REST APIs. That'll be up in about 2 weeks. We're going to have more and more classes. So if you're interested, go to silicondojo.com to see what the schedule is. Do become a member of silicondojo.com so you can get the emails. It's completely free. If you want to support what we're doing, remember, free to end user is not free. That's why I shake the brain nips every day. Click on the little donor box link down below and throw a couple of dollars in. And with that, see y'all later.